Hey y'all, and welcome back for another edition of Rich Mama's Club, y'all. We have been going and flowing, and I'm just so excited about this episode today because this is one of my new girlfriends. We just recently met this year in 2024, y'all. Before we even get into that, let me just let you know, Rich Mama's Club is all about just being able to have a place where you can take off your supermom cape, where you can be vulnerable, where you can be transparent, where you feel hurt, where you feel supported, and you just build community. So if you are looking for community, I want you to check out our membership. But beyond all of that, I want to get into this conversation. The reason I started this podcast is because I have so many amazing conversations with women that I'm in community with that I get so many gems. I learned how to go to private school and potty training. How to put my child in private school and different potty training hacks and so many different things when it comes from marriage and money management and weight loss, so many different things from relationships. And I realized that most people don't have access to some of the same people or even know how to break the ice to get in relationship with people. So I created this podcast to be a place where you can come in, hear some conversations that I have with some of my amazing friends and women that I'm even getting to know who are amazing moms. So my hope is that when you hear this, you feel seen, you feel heard, you can connect with some of the audience. And if you're looking for community, you can connect with community like Rich Mama's Club. So I'm your host, Brittany Raji Alberty. I'm also the founder of Rich Mama's Club. And today our guest, her name is Tasha, y'all. She is originally from Memphis. She is the best Southern Belle I've ever met. Like literally, her accent is just like, it feels like a sweet piece of pie to me every time I hear her speak. She is amazing. She's an entrepreneur, a mom of two, a wife, and she's residing in the Georgia area. But we're actually in an accountability group together. We met at a conference earlier this year, and I have grown to love her. We've been able to really support each other and put batteries in each other's back and also give each other grace in spaces that we haven't been able to do that. So I'm so excited to do this podcast interview with my good girl, my good girlfriend, my good sis, Tasha. Welcome, LaTasha. Hey, girl.
Hey, Brittany.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Good. So look, I know I kind of gave them like the girlfriend mode, but tell us like who
Yeah.
you are. Tell us some of your background. Know you're a wife, a mom, all the things, but how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I mean that is me. So like you said, I grew up in Tennessee. I am now in Georgia, so super small town here in Georgia, Tyrone, but Tennessee is always my roots. I consider myself a Tennessee girl through and through. No offense to the Georgia Peaches, but I still consider myself a Tennessee girl, and yeah, and I'm definitely a girly girl. So Southern Belle all the way. Whitley Gilbert was my hero growing up and my inspiration. So I've been probably thriving all of my life and striving to be just like her. But yeah, that's me. So, just like any other mom, I am a nurse practitioner. I've been doing that for about 15 years now. So that's how I spend a lot of my days. My hubby and I will be married. We celebrate 10 years next month. So we are very excited about that. It's been a long time, but he's my person. So it just feels so comfortable and just so easy. I don't want to say easy, but he makes it easy. Marriage is never easy. There's some hard parts, but it's doable. And then I have two boys, 5 and 7, and they keep me on my toes, but they love their mama. So that makes it always so beautiful.
Yes, I'm so excited because you're like our third. Well, by the time you guys see this, I don't know what guest she will be, but she's one of our very first guests. I'm saying she's in the first season. Yeah. And you are a boy mom, and you have two younger boys. Being a mom, being in the South, being the only woman in your house, what is this like? Tell us about some like what does day-to-day life look like being a boy mom?
Yeah, yeah. It's I guess because I have nothing else to compare it to, and my husband, he is very supportive. We make a wonderful team, like a really good team. I in a sense, we don't have a traditional marriage. Like we really do kind of handle things 50-50. I am not a morning person at all. So hubby, he takes care of everything in the morning. He gets up with the kids, he gets them dressed, hair, ready for school, backpack, all of that. And then during the day, we're working, and at nighttime we switch roles. So I have the nighttime routine. So, I'm doing baths, and we tag team with homework and getting them to bed. So just day to day really is, just kind of the monotonous of just waking up, taking care of the kids, making the money, taking care of the household, and then doing it all over again the next day.
Man, okay. So I love, man, we're just breaking stereotypes right off the back, right? You were because my husband, I feel like he's the lead parent too at home. Like my husband does majority of the cooking. I
Mm.
clean thoroughly. I'll say this, but he does like the laundry, like major cooking in the house. Like he does a lot of like those roles, and I think that our generation has been so good at not allowing stereotypes to dictate our home because
Mhm.
we know what works for us. And you've been
Right.
married now for 10 years. So how did you guys get to a point where okay, look, I know what domestic work look like for other people and being in the South, and you know how people have all of their comments and stuff. How did you get to a point where you're like, okay, hey, look, this is what works best for our family?
Yeah. I think it just really started off really just us being like two people compatible for each other, two people having the same goals, the same ideas about what we wanted out of just life in general, like the lifestyle that we wanted to lead. I think that, we before we even got married, before we had kids, we just kind of had a common understanding of what we saw our futures being, and we saw our futures together doing that. So I really think that's just how it really started. It was never like a spoken conversation. We just kind of both knew what we wanted out of life, and we were, kind of comfortable doing that together. I think, there are some moments that maybe there have been like some like, hey, traditional type of roles, but I think, in today's age where so many women do work 40 hours, like we all, in today's economy, any economy, everyone says today's economy, but we were home buyers about 5 years ago now. So even back then, we could have not bought the home that we have, or, live in the neighborhood we could on just his economy, his paycheck. So, just kind of knowing what we wanted to do together, and knowing that in order to do that, we have to be a team. So, there's no traditional roles. Like we both kind of pick up the slack everywhere. I do a lot of the cleaning, but he does a lot of cooking too, and I do a lot of cooking. So just really shared roles of knowing like, hey, it has to get done. So it's not like, oh, you're the mom, you're the wife, it's on you 100%, or oh, you're the dad, you're the husband, it's on you 100%. Like I'll, put things up, drill holes, clean out the garage, do all those things, the landscaping. So just like, there he'll do laundry, I'll go outside and I'm putting down mulch. So there's no traditional roles in our house. Like
Mhm.
everybody's just like, you see something needs to be done, you want something to be done, we just do it.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I hope that I'm just so excited because I've done like stuff like I'm batch recording you guys because I'm a busy mom too. So like she's my third interview today. And every time I'm having these conversations, I feel so much more freed also in myself, knowing that like another mom talked about how she's a full-time entrepreneur, but if she needs to go hop in a car and go Uber, she will. And
Mhm.
another one talked about like she worked at Steak and Shake up until she was 9 months pregnant, like full-time. Um, and just some of the nuances that I think that people don't realize how resilient we are and how like a lot of stuff on social media that you see for people is not really real, if that makes sense. Like people show
Mhm.
their highlight reel, but people don't know like we're gonna get it done, like we're getting it done. It's pretty and all those things. What's something you would say as being like a young black married couple mom, like what's something that like maybe you didn't get taught but you caught in the process of being who you are?
Oh man, I really think because I grew up in a single parent household, my mom was amazing, but I never had that mirror or kind of like that example to see like what a healthy husband wife situation looks like, or a healthy parenting situation looks like. So for me, like, and I know my circumstances probably speak to a lot of women out there, especially a lot of Black young women, is that just kind of picking up knowing, like, really how to give yourself, just kind of in, a supportive, loving, just kind of that shared space type of manner. And that really is something that I had to learn along the way, because I didn't see that growing up in my household, because
Mm.
it just wasn't there. So just, always remembering, because my mom was such a strong person, and she did so many things on her own because she had no choice but to do them. So I kind of grew up with that same very, mentality of, I can do it. I can do anything, right? I don't, not in the kind of like I don't need a man attitude, but in the kind of sense of like, my mom taught me if somebody else can do it, you can do it too. So
Yeah.
in my understanding, like anything at all, like our refrigerator broke down, and it's like, well, we got to get it fixed, expensive. It's like, well, if somebody else can fix it, I know I can fix it too. Like YouTube
Wow.
University all the way. Order the part. We got a refrigerator
And you
working.
made it work?
Right. Yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
not that girl. Look, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and that was just my mom. Like, she was never like, she never bashed my dad, never that kind of situation. She was never like a man basher, never that situation. Because she
Yeah.
didn't have time for any of that. But seeing her example of that, like, you can do things, you do not need anyone else to do them, like anyone else. Like if something is not working or happening, then you need to figure out or make it happen. And she always made it happen. So I just had to learn to be able to be open to allowing someone or sharing that space, that I don't always have to be the one to make it happen. Like I don't always have to be the one where everything falls onto. Like I have someone there who is supportive and who can help me, and he'll make sure that things happen, and I don't always have to be the one that it all falls onto. So that's something that I had to learn. I still struggle with it a lot, because of course nothing's perfect. And even talking to my sister, just being in the same household, we share kind of the same headspace, of like she feels the same kind of way too, because that was
Mm.
our example, is like mama made it happen. She always made it happen. So
Yeah.
just being just vulnerable to be able to say, like, I can step back. I don't always have to make it happen. Someone else can help me, or they can be the person to do it.
Man, yeah, I think we all. I know for me, my mom was like that too. My mom was always that person with that cape on and was gonna like get it done. Even to this day, sometimes I feel like to her detriment, like mama, sit down. Like you don't have to do it. Like somebody
Yes.
else can help you. Unlearning that can be really hard. Now this is something you just trigger something in me too, because you are a nurse practitioner and you care for people. And
Yeah.
as a wife, as a mom, we're naturally nurturers. How did you get into that profession? Were you already in the profession before you became a wife and a mom? And then yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
tell me,
yeah.
how did you work?
Yeah, for a very long time, I've always wanted to be a nurse, knew I was going to be a nurse. And it really started, most people who, I grew up in a very small town. So if you'll ask anyone, like, what was Tasha going to be growing up, everyone knew it was going to be a nurse since I was like in middle school. So it really stemmed from a classmate who became a friend. She had epilepsy. I had a science teacher come to me one day and ask if I would be willing to be her seizure buddy. So basically, if she, just kind of be with her, knowing what to do in case she had a seizure. So she wouldn't be alone, or she wasn't, just kind of be off on her own. So they brought paramedics in to teach me how to take care of her, what to do, what to watch out for, when to get help, how to get help. And ever since then, I just had it in my mind I was going to be a nurse, and it was really that science teacher, because I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Because
Mm.
Sesame Street jobs. I grew up in a very small town, so there weren't a lot of different professions that we saw, especially being a Black person in a very small town. So it's like, doctor, lawyer, teacher, postman, things that you see. I call them Sesame Street jobs, things that you see, people talk about Sesame Street. I don't ever remember them talking about a nurse, definitely not a nurse practitioner. But yeah, that's how it all came about. It's just that teacher told me, like, you'll be a nurse one day and you'll be a good one. And since then, I've just always had it in my mind I was going to be a nurse. I went to high school. We had a great VOTEC program. I was able to be a nursing assistant and take nursing assistant classes in high school. So we would get on a bus every day and we would go up to the nursing home and take care of folks and learn a lot of things. So by the time I got to college, I already knew like a lot of things, as far as like being a nurse that most people probably didn't come into nursing school with. But yeah, that's how I got started. And I did a summer internship and met a nurse practitioner because back then there weren't a lot of them. Now there are nurse practitioners everywhere. But that was not always the case. So, I met one and figured out like what she did. I was like, well, I want to do that too. And then once I became a nurse and started working on the floor, we had this amazing nurse practitioner. Her name was Tracy Tidwell. There were only 3 nurse practitioners in the entire hospital. She was one of them. And just to see the way that she operated, her smarts, and just the way that patients loved her and how she was still able to do a lot of things that doctors did, but did not have to be, but she still kind of had that nurse space. She still had that caring and nurturing and kind of the time to be with patients. I was like, well, that's what that just pretty much still the deal. Is like, that's what I want to do. And I think I was a nurse for maybe like a year and a half before I went back to school and became a nurse practitioner. And it honestly changed my life. Like back then, still weren't a whole lot of us. It was really after the Affordable Healthcare Act, it kind of put into place a lot of nurse practitioners. But yeah, just kind of go into that space before, the profession just exploded was totally different. But yeah, I met my husband way after, I had already become a nurse practitioner. I think by then I was maybe like 3 to 4 or 5 years. But yeah, it was, he likes it. He's an engineer. So I have a lot of friends who are nurses, nurse practitioners, and all of us have engineer husbands, and we cannot figure out what the correlation is between the two, but it just seems
y'all like school. Y'all be in school a long time. Look, I don't know.
Probably so. Yeah.
Wow. That's, oh my God, it's so much to unpack. Hold on, I just gotta process just a little bit. Well, while I'm processing, how has the dynamic changed with you? Okay, so you were already a nurse. You felt this calling. You fell in love with it as a child, and then you get married, and then you have children. How has that dynamic changed, and like even your self-care? Because now it's like you care for people 24/7.
Yeah, it just, there have been some times that it has been harder, or a little bit easier, just depending on the role that, the job that I had as a nurse practitioner at that time. Like I said, the profession has evolved a lot. When I first started, we were called like mid-levels or, physician extenders. They were always like these terms, that they were using for us. And our role was really, that it was presented, it was more so doing the more common things so doctors can take care of the more complex things. Well, that's not the case anymore as a nurse practitioner. After I had my first child, I had a very complex nurse practitioner job. I worked in epilepsy. And I found myself many days being the only provider in the office. So there were no other doctors around, there weren't any other NPs around, but I had a lot of years of experience. So I felt comfortable doing it. But at the same time, I was taking care of some very complex patients. I think if I had done that job before I had kids, it would have looked a little bit different. It would have felt differently, but it took a lot out of me because it required a lot. So yeah, just, having, I think with kids, a husband, I had to really learn what balance meant. And just kind of learn that there is not a balance. So I was once asked by a nursing student. She was doing one of these projects for class where, how you find somebody in the profession, to do a survey. One of the questions was like, how do you do work-life balance? And at that point in time, I knew my answer was I don't. So I do not believe in work-life balance because I realized that if I had balance between work and life, that meant that work was the same level as life, and it's not. I had to
Mhm.
realize for me that it's not. My kids, my husband do not come at the same level or below a job. I
Yeah.
just, I, you know, I really suffered mentally when I was trying to balance the two, and that's because I really felt like that I was not supposed to. My kids mean the world to me. My husband means the world to me. So, if that means I have to give more to a job than to them, I'm not with that. That just doesn't agree to me, they're or if I put them on the same level, meaning that, if I one's here and one's there and I gotta choose between which way that I go, I'm gonna go to my kids, I'm gonna go to my husband. I'm not gonna go to the job. So that just never settled well with me. And when I finally realized that there's not a balance and I don't want there to be a balance, that
Mhm.
opened my eyes. Like that made me think differently about how I approach life, how I approach my family, how I approach my job, my business, that I am the happiest when my kids, my husband are happy. Um, and that's the balance that I want. So there's an imbalance. Some days that job may require me to stay over a little bit longer. Thankfully, my job now I don't have to do that, but there have been times where I may have to stay like 10 or 15 minutes longer, or 30 minutes longer, but it's no longer like, well, I'm not going. There was a point in time where I didn't see my child in the morning before I went to work because he was still asleep, and by the time I got home, he was already in the bed. So, there
Mhm.
was a time I went days without seeing him. And I hated that. Like I
Yeah.
really hated that. So it was like I never want to do that again because that meant that there was a I was putting them together. They're not together. They're separate. One is gonna always be a higher than the other one. And that's my kids all day long.
Yes, man. So I'm so glad you did that on your own. You prompted that because when you said that in our like accountability group, I was like, oh, I can do that. And honestly, even like with starting this now, like it has taken a lot out of me this past year to really try to reevaluate. Okay, we're in a different season now with her turning. My daughter's 3 now, and I've been married for it'll be 4 years next month. But this is my second marriage, and his second marriage too. So we both were really um intentional with making sure that we treat this as sacred as it is, right? Like because we've been in situations where it wasn't right. I mean, it was needed because it prepared us for this, but we know this needs to be tended to, right? Like it's a garden, it needs to be
Right.
cultivated. So I had to be really intentional in this season to make sure that, like, okay, look, what does my husband need in this season? What do I need as his wife? What do I need as her mom? What is like her needs are different. So having to maneuver through that. So like my work, I'm sorry, my work has changed now. I'm like, okay, so now, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm okay with working a 9 to 5 now because I can't bootstrap and be all in here like what I was for the last, 5, 6 years, full time entrepreneur, like just in the game. I have to be in this game. It's a different game I have to play
Mhm.
now, right? So when you said that, a few weeks ago, I was like, "Ooh, okay, that feels good. Feels like something I could." Because when you are trying to balance it, it you just can't, right? You just can't, right? Like, I mean, if you're a person that really like you prayed, you really wanted, your family, you wanted something different than what you grew up with. When you have it, how like to get it is not one thing, it's to keep it.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I just thank you for that whole analogy, and it really helped me also to be like, okay, you know what, no, my family, it matters more. So like, yeah, okay, if I'm gonna take a Saturday and batch record so I can have content for a month and have these conversations and just think different, think more strategically, not just for money but for what does my family need from me as well. So I just love that. So one, I know you're also a business owner. We've been talking about the nurse practitioner. You do something totally different for your business. Talk
Yeah.
about that. Talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my business, the name is Grant and Graham Gifts. It is named after my boys. So my son's name is Colin Graham, and then my younger son, he is Dylan Grant. So that's where the Grant and Graham comes from. Totally on purpose. I wanted something that was, meaningful to me, sounded nice. So it really was just like a stroke of genius to come up with that name. But I make personalized gift boxes. So something totally different that I have ever seen. The way that I make them are totally different. And it really came from my previous business. I used to be a event designer, wedding planner. And it was called Posh Party by LaTasha. So I had been doing it for years, way before Pinterest, Instagram, and I was really focusing on baby showers more than anything because I soon learned that I really didn't like doing weddings and the time leading up to weddings. Like it just took a lot out of me. It just required a lot that I just didn't have to give because I wasn't prepared to leave my, full-time job as a nurse practitioner at that point. I just got my degree and I was like, I worked really hard for it, still paying for it in student loans. So I'm not ready to just kind of walk away from it. But I really wanted to find an avenue where I could still kind of stay in that same creative space, kind of really take care of that same kind of community. And that's where it just kind of was born out of. So all of the ideas that I put into an event, like the theming and the colors, and just coming up with ways that we can be creative. I wanted to find a way that I could do that from home. So it really was being in the first year of my son, trying to do it all, still trying to be a planner and a wife and a new mom and a nurse practitioner living in Atlanta, the Atlanta area. It takes about an hour to get somewhere and an hour to get back home. So just to like this travel alone commute would take so much time. So I really wanted to find something that I could do from home on my own time. When Dylan goes out of bed or Colin goes out of bed, like I could just take a couple of times to do it on my own, ship it off. I don't have to go to a location and be there all day to set up or go back, late at night to break it down. So the gift box idea really was born from that, of just still taking that creativity, the same kind of way that I would approach a wedding or a baby shower, and just make something really special and personalized for someone. And I love it because I can do it in any aspect. I've done bridesmaids boxes, I've done bereavement boxes, I've done events. I've done vacation surprise boxes. Those are definitely by far my most creative product that I provide. No one else I've really seen do it the way that I do it. And my boys love it. And Dylan told me the sweetest thing the other day that just kind of made me know that I needed to keep on. And he's like, Mom, I really love your boxes. I was like, you do, sweetie? He's like, yeah. He's like, I really love your boxes. He's like, my favorite box is when you made one for us for Great Wolf Lodge. He's like, I really like that box. So those are probably by far the most I've ever sold. We're going to the indoor water park, Great Wolf Lodge, and just having like little goodies in there and with their name. So, my husband, he's like, everybody likes something with their name on. He's like, you should do something with that. So that's where it came about. Still doing them, ship off a lot of boxes. Recently, I decided to do sorority boxes. It's a space that I've always wanted to go into. Saw a real kind of creative way that I can provide a need. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta. So I remember all the things that I collected during my time just on campus and just kind of going through my process, all these kind of small trinkets, my acceptance letter and everything, pictures. Like I have all these things, but I will just keep them like in a shoebox or a Tupperware box. So just nothing really fancy or, kind of meaningful. So I was like, I see a need there. I can see something that I can do. So now I make these very beautiful creative boxes with name and number, crossing line, very things that are very distinct to our culture. So just kind of building my own space that no one else is in. And I love that because I think as entrepreneurs, we think that we need to do what someone else is doing, or, do it in a different way. So just kind of thinking literally outside the box, because that's what I, have our boxes. Just kind of thinking outside the box is something that I can bring my talents and skills to just have something totally new that has never been seen to any market, like really creating my own lane.
Well, one, your boxes are super dope.
Thank you.
One, I want people to take away from this, especially that career professional mom who, like, you might have a creative streak. I love that you have now balance in perspective of this, like where it's not just all this, like that creative outlet. I feel like it balances your personality too, like so you still get to have some of that because as moms, like you're always planning something, you're always putting something together. So like having like the full on planner business, even though that might have been a creative outlet for you, the managing it is just a lot. Like I know, like we're doing events all the time, it's a lot. Even though I love it, it's like it's a chaos that you love. But I just love the fact that you can do something totally different. That's an outlet that's also revenue generating for you and your family. So I hope that other moms that are like listening, if you are, you have a 9 to 5 and maybe it's not even about money, just finding something that you love that can be a legacy project. It's named after her boys and it's super creative and she is killing it on Etsy, y'all. Like, so just, yes, really excited about what that looks like for your family. I did want to ask you a few other questions just
Yeah.
because, because I know a little bit some like, you have moved from your home state of Tennessee and now reside in Georgia. What was it like relocating and what made you, settle on a different state other than your home state?
Yeah, it was really different because when I moved back to Tennessee, I never would have thought in a million years that I was going to move away. I had no intentions to. I didn't want to. I think at that time there were a lot of people before they would move away from the Memphis area. Just kind of like that brain drain. But I really feel like the people that I graduated with around the same time that we all just kind of had this collective thought that we would stay. Instead of, moving out of the Memphis area, because maybe Memphis doesn't have the best reputation with certain things. I think a lot of us just really kind of embrace being there. I think we still embrace being there. I have a lot of college friends who are still there to this day. They are thriving. They are changing the city of Memphis, and it's beautiful. A college friend just literally became the mayor of Memphis. So just to kind of see, all the way that the city is changing and how, people are really like, it really is Memphis against everybody. We wear it on the t-shirt. So I never thought that I would leave. Then I met my husband. So FedEx is headquartered in Memphis and he's an engineer. So he was living there. He did not like Memphis at the time. And to be honest, back then, like I said, it didn't have the best of reputation. So he didn't see the city in the eyes that I saw it, like growing up, to me. I romanticize it, even going back, I realize it still has a long ways to go, but I see so much of how it has changed for the better, the people, and just the opportunities there. The reason why I said one of the reasons why I say is like, I'm a Tennessee girl through and through is just because of the grind, like being back home. Like I just feel it like, people are there, like just real down to earth go getter. So leaving that where you feel very rooted to come into somewhere like the Atlanta area where a lot of things are very Hollywood and very different. It was a big change for me, but I was totally invested in making it, kind of work. Mostly because, I had my person here. If Philip would have went to my husband, if he would have went to Alaska, I would have been right there with them, and I think we would have just done just as well. So going to a new city where I knew some people, but still kind of busy with, home life and my job and being a newlywed, it was still, a little difficult to kind of just get settled in. But yeah, now that I'm here, the neighborhood that we live in now, that was another thing that we had a collective kind of agreement or kind of a same mind is that the type of neighborhood that we wanted our kids to grow up in. So it wasn't just like the buying the house, the style of house, how much the house costs, or even the zip code, just finding a community in a neighborhood that we knew that our kids would thrive And we are so blessed that we were able to do that. We did, we bought the house, but it wasn't just the house that we were buying. We knew that we were buying the neighborhood too.
Yeah.
So just a caveat to anyone, who's in the home buying process, if you're young, you have kids, like, don't just look at the house, like look
Yeah.
at, or just the school system that they'll go into, because that was something that we were really kind of looking at more than, anything. Just kind of look around at the neighborhood, are there other kids, if there's an HOA, like what are they doing? So I hate to say that we looked out, but we were very intentional in what we were trying to find when it was to come and buy into a house in this neighborhood. We got exactly what we wanted. So having other mommy friends, having other kids that my sons can play with, just kind of like that old school nature. It was like, it's the bikes in the front yard, type of deal. We have Easter egg hunts, we have Halloween parties in our neighborhood. So 4th of July, we have the block party. So just kind of bringing it back to that old school kind of neighborhood where, we watch out for each other, our kids are friends. That's has, today, that's what has made being here as opposed to being back in Tennessee much more comfortable. And I love it. Yeah, I couldn't have asked for anything else.
That's what I'm looking for, girl. So look, send some of that. Look, God, look, put it in the bottle.
Yes,
Look,
yes, yes.
I'm happy with where we are now, but we will be soon in the home buying process.
Mhm.
Oh, look, Lord, and the Lord stay the same. But I love your perspective too of like looking for community is something that's super important for me, which is why I created the community that I have. But where I live in, you're from Memphis, I'm from St. Louis. It's one highway away. We 55 all day,
Right.
Highway 55. And we have a lot of similarities too, like, reputation, neighborhood, like a lot of those things like that happens in there's small, big cities, right? Like, you know them, but you ain't got to go there, if that makes
Right,
sense.
exactly. Yeah.
And when I moved back here, like I end up meeting my husband and he's from here and he wants to stay here. That's because he ain't been nowhere else. Look, if you invite us to Tyrone or wherever we gonna go, look, he might say something that's different. But I feel like I want to move to a small town, not a small town, but somewhere that's really community centered. So it doesn't have to be as busy. So I don't need to be in Atlanta, but I want to be somewhere that and that might be here, but who's to say? However, God wants to maneuver things, right? But community is so important to me. Not only like the aspects of the house, the backyard, and how you will, even um communicate with your neighbors. Like, are we all gonna mow our lawn? Are we all,
Yeah.
so many things, and are we gonna be, respectful of children and families and all those things? So those things matter when you're in the home buying process or even renting. Like, you're gonna be in a neighborhood for a minute, all of it matters. So I'm thankful you for bringing those things up. What's maybe something else? Moving to now, you live in the Atlanta metro, but you live outside of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about that decision to not be in the main city.
Yeah, I mean, it really came down to dollars and cents. Like living in the Atlanta metro area, just not even just like Atlanta itself. So where we live, is still considered the metro area. If you talk to most Atlanta folks, they will tell you that where I live is not metro Atlanta, but on the map it is. But yeah, just living in the city was just so expensive. And then looking, like I said, at school systems. So it was probably going to be a situation that when we were looking at houses, that not only do we have to take into account of the house, but also to like the cost of private school too on top of that, just kind of looking at some of the situations that and we did look at some areas, like we look at Decatur was, is much closer to Atlanta, it was a lot closer to my job at the time. But we just kind of settled on this area. My husband is from Fairburn, which is right across the other side of the interstate. So I don't think that was by, design that he wanted to be closer to his home, his childhood home or, his family. It just kind of worked out like that. But being in a town like that we're in, it's very small, but it gives us a lot of access to the bigger city without, having to be in the city. Just at that time, I think we built and purchased our home in 2019. So at that time, just, the housing prices were steadily going up. The area that we did look in, that was much closer to like the city of Atlanta, people were literally buying houses sight unseen. Like they were just going really fast. Like, we would wake up to like some alerts from our realtor. We would send her an email and say like, hey, we want to check out these houses. And she was like, it's already gone. It's
Wow.
already under contract. I'm like, how? Like, we just got an alert like overnight that the house went on market. And she's like, yeah, it's gone. So really, there was no inventory to even like purchase a lot of the houses. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to build. We looked at so many houses all over, the metro area, some closer to Atlanta than others. And I just told my husband, I was like, God is telling me if we do not have if we aren't under contract by this date, like I feel like we just need a build. And that was really on my heart, my brain. I was like, I think we just need a build. And it happened. Like May came of that year, we still hadn't found anything. There still wasn't a whole lot of inventory. So I was like, we're just going to build. So we found the lot here in Tyrone in this neighborhood. We looked at several houses in this neighborhood, but none of them were exactly what we wanted or, at a price point that we were, okay with. But yeah, it was just serendipity. It was all the universe that we ended up here in Tyrone. And I tell when people I tell like we live in Tyrone, they're like, where is that? They're like, where is Tyrone? It's like, well, do you know where Peachtree City is? A lot of people have heard of that because that's a city they've maybe seen on TikTok that like folks drive golf carts everywhere. I was like, it's a town just like right next to that. So we
Oh,
are able to have a small town feel, but still have access to the golf cart path, still can get on the 85, the interstate really quickly to get to the airport or the city to do whatever we want to, really quickly. So just being in the metro area, it wasn't for us about zip code or to say that we're in Atlanta, just finding a house that we can afford, that we were happy with, that our kids were going to be in good school systems. So that's really how we just ended up here. It just kind of checked all of our boxes and we had an open mind to, not being in a certain place.
man, this has been so good. I didn't know you had a new build. Well, you did a new build. Like so
Yeah.
many things. Oh my gosh, so many things. So, okay, as we come to like wrap, right? What's something that you want a mom who might be in a similar situation to you, like, or even that you would tell like your younger self? What's some word of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Oh, I thought about this. So, I had the opportunity I want to say like in the last year to go to Pinky Cole's American Sesh. So most people don't know Pinky Cole is the owner of Slutty Vegan that originated here in Atlanta. Huge entrepreneur, such inspiration. And when you get to go to American Sesh, she will want you to put up a picture with the frame, basically kind of saying that you're going. Just kind of hype it up, hype yourself up. But yeah, my love letter to myself was that, little girl, things get easier. You get to live, all of your dreams, just you worked really hard and it happened. So, to anyone, younger moms or, anyone who's just kind of maybe stumbled upon this, I think the takeaway is that you do get to live all your dreams. You really can. Like, if you really everything probably should have been stacked against me not to be in the house that I am, not to be in the profession that I am, to have the degrees, to even be an entrepreneur. Like if you read a statistics, everything was supposed to not happen for me. But when you decide that you want something, you can do it. Like just do it. You can I would have never thought in a billion years that I would have built a house, let alone have a house. But just use your resources, figure out how to do it. And just the same way, that your mama figured out how to get dinner on the table, you can figure out how to make it happen.
That, that. Oh, I cannot end this any better. This has been so good. Can you tell people where they can find you online, and even tell us where we can shop, y'all? Keepsake boxes. If you know a girl who is crossing in her sorority, or if you have a birthday or a vacation or something where you need a keepsake box, please check out her store. Her boxes are amazing. Tell them where they can tap in with you.
Yeah. So my Etsy store is Grant and Graham. And it's also could be found at grantandgraham.com, and Instagram, the handle is Grant and Graham for Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, Tasha, my favorite Southern Belle. Look, I just love you to pieces. Look, love you to pieces. I thank you for coming and always giving your words of wisdom and your gems. You guys stay tuned if you want to learn more about how you can just tap into community like the one that we have here at Rich Mamas Club. You can learn more about membership options and some of our virtual meet and greets. We'll see you later.
Thanks.